For the 8th consecutive season, the Los Angeles Dodgers are National League West champions. Unfortunately, despite this amazing level of success, this team has 0 World Championships during that run. And the last time the Dodgers won a World Series was in 1988, led by an elite pitching staff with names like Oral Hershiser, Tim Belcher, Fernando Valenzuela. Unbelievably, however, that team hit less home runs than the 2020 Dodgers. And of course, that is unbelievable because the 2020 Dodgers haven't even played 60 games yet, while the 88 Dodgers played a full 162 game schedule. That is how ridiculously potent this 2020 team is. They are almost literally an all-star team. The question then is, will this be the year for the Dodgers? Can they finally get over the hump and bring a ring back to Los Angeles? The answer should be yes with this team. Now, it is going to be a much tougher road to the championship this year than any of the previous. With expanded playoffs, 16 teams get in as opposed to the normal 10, and there will be more teams to get through. Furthermore, with the first series being only the best of 3 instead of the best of 7 or even the best of 5, any team can have a couple of nice pitching performances with some timely hitting and a little bit of luck and take out the Dodgers in the first round. Nevertheless, assuming the Dodgers make it out of that first round, this team has everything a team needs to go all the way. Mookie Betts is on fire. Clayton Kershaw is pitching like he's in his absolute prime. Corey Seager is fully healthy and contributing every day. The rotation has been stable thanks to youngsters like Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin. They have stepped it up after the loss of David Price, who opted out, and Alex Wood, who was injured. Still, no one can blame a Dodgers fan who's worried about this team and thinking about the past 7 years where the Dodgers were not the last team standing. And we're going to go through each of those years and figure out what went wrong, what prevented this team from winning it all. Starting in 2013, led by Don Mattingly, the Dodgers were 92-70, easily winning the National League West. They suffered a tremendous blow on the last day of the season when Matt Kemp injured his ankle, had to sit out the playoffs. Andre Ethier was also injured. He could only pinch hit. However, the Dodgers were able to get past the Braves in the NLDS, thanks in part to a great pitching performance by Clayton Kershaw in Game 1. In the NLCS, however, the Cardinals proved too much for the Dodgers. Game 1 was a nail-biter that ended in extra innings after Kenley Jansen gave up an RBI single to Carlos Beltran in the bottom of the 13th. In Game 2, Kershaw was fantastic again, but the offense stalled and the Dodgers lost 1-0. Then it was discovered that Hanley Ramirez had a broken rib after he got hit by a pitch in Game 1, so he sat out Game 3, which was a Dodgers victory, tried to play in Game 4, but he struck out 3 times and was in noticeable pain. The Dodgers lost 4-2. On the brink of elimination, the Dodgers were able to pick up a win in Game 5, but then lost Game 6 after Kershaw gave up 7 runs and 10 hits in just 4 innings. So why did the Dodgers lose in 2013? Key injuries that occurred just before or during the playoffs. The offense did not step it up when they needed to, and Clayton Kershaw struggled in a win-or-go-home elimination game. So now to 2014. Don Mattingly returned as the Dodgers manager, and the Dodgers were even better, winning 94 games, taking the division by 6 over the Giants, and in the first round of the playoffs, they were matched up with the St. Louis Cardinals, the team that eliminated them in 2013. In Game 1, the Dodgers seemed to be in command. They had a 6-1 lead. Kershaw was having a fantastic game through 6 innings, only allowing 2 hits. But in the 7th, the wheels came off. Kershaw gave up hit after hit as the Cardinals chipped away at the lead. And even after allowing 5 hits, including a John Jay RBI single to cut the lead to 2, Mattingly left Kershaw in the game to face Matt Carpenter.
With everyone standing at Dodger Stadium, Kershaw pitches. Carpenter swings and hits a drive. Right center field. It's in the gap, and it's down off the wall. Molina scores. Adams scores. Jay scores.
Not long afterwards, a 3-run bomb by Matt Holliday off Pedro Baez put the game away. The Dodgers did come back to win Game 2 despite some bullpen troubles, but could only muster 1 run in Game 3 against John Lackey. The bullpen faltered again. The Dodgers lost the game 3-1, and in Game 4, the Dodgers, once again led by Kershaw, took an early lead, but once again, Kershaw started to struggle in the 7th, put men on base, and was left in too long. This time he gave up a home run to Matt Adams, which was all the Cardinals needed. They won the game and the series. So why did the Dodgers lose in 2014? The offense did not step it up when they needed to, poor bullpen performance, and leaving in Clayton Kershaw too long. So it's on to 2015. The Dodgers finished 92-70, just like they did in 13. Mattingly was brought back to try again. In a change from 2014, the Dodgers faced off against the New York Mets in the NLDS. In Game 1, despite a good performance from Kershaw, Jacob deGrom struck out 13 batters and completely baffled the Dodgers hitters. The Mets won 3-1. And although the Dodgers did come back to win Game 2, they lost Chase Utley for Games 3 and 4 due to a suspension after a hard slide into second base, injuring Ruben Tejada. So on to Game 3 at Citi Field, the Dodgers pitching imploded. Brett Anderson gave up a bases-clearing double to Curtis Granderson, a home run to Travis d'Arnaud. The bullpen was not much better, and the Dodgers lose 13-7. Then in Game 4, the Dodgers were able to win behind a strong performance from Kershaw. Nevertheless, the Mets, behind Jacob deGrom, again beat the Dodgers in Game 5, thanks to some heroics by Daniel Murphy, who homered off Greinke to give the Mets a 3-2 lead, which held through the game. And the Dodgers go home once again. Reasons: the Dodgers lost in 2015. Poor offense. They only scored 18 runs in 5 games. Poor bullpen performance. And then also, we don't know what Chase Utley would have done if he was there in 3 and 4, because he wasn't there because of some poor sportsmanship, leading to a suspension. The Dodgers unable to get it done in 15. So in 2016, the Dodgers 91-71, still good enough to win the West over the Giants, who completely fell apart in that second half after having the best record in baseball at the break. Don Mattingly was shown the door after 15, and Dave Roberts was now at the helm for the Dodgers. This year, the Dodgers were successful in the NLDS, beating the Nationals in a hard-fought series that lasted all 5 games. They moved on to the NLCS to face the Chicago Cubs, who got the Dodgers right away in Game 1. Kenta Maeda gave up 3 runs in the first 2 innings, and the Dodgers did come back to tie it, but Joe Blanton gave up a grand slam to Miguel Montera in the 8th inning, along with a solo shot by Dexter Fowler. The Cubs won 8-4. In Game 2, it's Clayton Kershaw dazzling 7 shutout innings, and the Dodgers were able to win it 1-0, despite an amazing performance by the Cubs' Kyle Hendricks. In Game 3 was Rich Hill, who dominated for the Dodgers, and they won again 6-0. Up 2-1 in the series. In the driver's seat, it looked like the Dodgers were ready to punch their ticket to the World Series. But it all began to unravel in Game 4 as the Cubs took out the Dodgers and youngster Julio Urias in blowout fashion, 10-2, thanks to a great pitching performance by John Lackey, home runs by Anthony Rizzo and Addison Russell. And in Game 5, Joe Blanton gave up a key home run out of the bullpen. Addison Russell again. The Cubs won 8-4. So suddenly, in an elimination game again in Game 6, Clayton Kershaw got another opportunity to show what he can do in such a game. But once again, he failed as the Cubs jumped on the board with 2 in the bottom of the first, added another in the bottom of the second, and by the 5th had extended that lead to 5-0. The Dodgers had no answers. Kyle Hendricks completely shut them down, and the Cubs won the game and the series. So what happened in 2016? Why did the Dodgers lose? Kershaw's continued struggles in elimination games. Poor offense. They were outscored 31-17, just scored 17 runs in 6 games. And again, poor bullpen performance. So from 13 to 16, the Dodgers, clearly an elite team, but in 2017, they looked even better. This was an absolute can't-miss championship team that won 104 games in the regular season, went into the playoffs full of confidence. What could possibly go wrong in 17? And they did look unstoppable. They tore through the playoffs. They finished off the Cubs 11-1 in Game 5 of the National League Championship Series, obliterating the Cubs 4-1, and then they would face up against the Houston Astros in the 2017 World Series in an absolutely wild fall classic that went the full 7 games. Both teams scored 34 runs throughout this series, with the Astros beating the Dodgers 5-1 in Game 7 after chasing Yu Darvish. And reports followed that Darvish was tipping his pitches, which seemed likely the way that they were hitting him. But then, more than 2 years later, The bomb drops. The baseball world is shaken by reports that the 17 Astros had been stealing signs using an elaborate system with a monitor, camera, banging trash cans. We all know the story, and this called into question the legitimacy of that title. And since it's really unclear what kind of unfair advantage, if any, they had in the World Series, what they were doing in the World Series, I don't think that we can really critique the Dodgers too much for this loss. We don't know what happened. We do know, though, at the end of the day, the Dodgers were not able to win it all once again in 17. So we're just going to move on to the next season and say that in 17, the Dodgers, they were great. They did everything they could. They went all the way to Game 7 of the World Series. It just didn't happen for them. So in 2018, the Dodgers once again win their division, 92-71, and once again they make it to the World Series. And this time their opponent is the Boston Red Sox. And Kershaw takes the mound in Game 1. The Red Sox strike right away, timely hitting from Mookie Betts, JD Martinez, and Kershaw not at his sharpest. The Dodgers lose 8-4. And there were a lot of questions regarding Dave Roberts' decisions, like the starting lineup, which had struggling guys like Brian Dozier and Kike Hernandez over superstars like Max Muncy and Cody Bellinger, all because of their righty-lefty matchups. And he also made some questionable bullpen decisions, like going with Alex Wood in the 7th over the more obvious Pedro Baez. And Wood, of course, gives up a home run to Eduardo Nunez. In Game 2, it was Hyun-Jin Ryu for the Dodgers against David Price of the Red Sox. The Dodgers had a 2-1 lead in the 5th, but the Red Sox loaded the bases, chasing Ryu, and reliever Ryan Madson walked in the tying run. JD Martinez drove 2 more in with a single, and the Dodgers lost 4-2, and Dodgers fans everywhere were asking why Madson. After loading the bases, it did make sense to remove Ryu. After all, the Dodgers had been burned time and time again by leaving those starters in too long. But Pedro Baez once again seemed like the more obvious decision, and it seemed like maybe Roberts was saving him for later, but the critical moment was then and there in the 5th inning with the bases loaded. And it seems like Roberts has like this certain order that he likes to bring in his relievers instead of basing it on how dire the situation is. The situation called for one of the strongest arms in the bullpen. It seems like Baez would have been the better option than Madson. Obviously, we're saying this after the fact, but nevertheless, it didn't work out and the Dodgers lost. They did win Game 3 behind a strong performance by Alex Wood. However, in Game 4, bullpen management issues struck again. Rich Hill threw 6 innings of shutout baseball. Dodgers took a 4-0 lead in the bottom of the 6th thanks to a 3-run bomb by Puig. And in the top of the 7th, after walking a batter and then striking out Nunez, Dave Roberts surprisingly went to the bullpen. But he didn't bring in Baez. He didn't even bring in Madson. He went with a lefty, replacing a lefty. And he brings in Scott Alexander, who proceeded to walk the first batter he faced. Was not sharp at all. 2 batters later, Ryan Madson does come in and serves up a 3-run bomb to Mitch Moreland. The Dodgers lost that game 9-6, and fans begged the question, how are you going to take out Rich Hill, who was absolutely dealing? Now, there was a lot of talk behind the scenes that Rich Hill had mentioned that, hey, keep an eye on me. Maybe I'm not feeling that great. So there are reasons why, but at the end of the day, it was a move that was heavily criticized, and the Dodgers lost. And then in Game 5, an elimination game, who went out to the mound? Clayton Kershaw. Another opportunity to prove that he could pitch well in an elimination game, and he allows a 2-run homer right off the bat to Steve Pearce in the top of the 1st. He did settle down a little bit, but the Dodgers offense struggled against David Price. Price pitched into the 8th, allowing only 1 run on 3 hits and 2 walks while striking out 5. The Red Sox continued to add on against the bullpen, and they won the game 5-1, and the Dodgers lost. Why did they lose in 2018? Questionable managerial decisions, Kershaw's continued postseason struggles, and his failure to pitch well in elimination games. He was 0-2 in the World Series with a 7.36 ERA and also poor offense, just 16 runs in 5 games. And then last year, 2019, the Dodgers looking as strong as ever. On September 4th, the Dodgers broke the NL record for the most home runs in a season with their 250th home run. They clinched the division on the 10th of September, the earliest in their history, and they finished with an absolutely unbelievable 106-win, 56-loss record. led once again by Dave Roberts. And in 2019, their opponent in the NLDS was the eventual champion Nationals. But the Dodgers came out of the gate on fire behind Walker Buehler, defeating the Nats 6-0 in Game 1. And in Game 2, Clayton Kershaw took the hill, quickly gave up 3 runs over the first 2 innings, and in similar fashion to that 2018 Game 5 start, he settled down, but it was too late. Steven Strasburg dominated, and the Nats win it 4-2. In Game 3, the Dodger bats came alive, however, and they won 10-4 behind a strong performance from Hyun-Jin Ryu. But they were again silenced in Game 4 by Max Scherzer, and the Nationals won 6-1, keeping pace with the mighty Dodgers. And then in a final and dramatic Game 5, the Dodgers jumped all over Steven Strasburg to take a 3-0 early lead. And for the Dodgers, Walker Buehler looked strong, allowing just 1 run, putting the Dodgers in a position to take the series and move on. Then, in the 7th, shockingly, with the Nationals threatening, Dave Roberts goes to the bullpen and brings in none other than Clayton Kershaw, a man who is not only accustomed to starting games and not coming out of the bullpen, but a man who has struggled time and time again in elimination playoff games. The Dodgers needed just 7 outs. They had a fully rested bullpen, but Roberts goes with Kershaw. He had the lefty-lefty matchup he wanted to get out of the inning, and luckily for the Dodgers, Kershaw succeeded. He strikes out Adam Eaton, gets out of the inning. It was a questionable move. It was certainly scary for Dodgers fans, but it seemed to work out. Until it didn't. Roberts, unbelievably, stuck with Kershaw into the 8th inning with superstar Anthony Rendon coming up, and Rendon did this.
And he faces 3, 4, and 5.
Swung on, hit of the air to deep left center field. Taylor going back, warning track at the wall. He leaps. It is gone. Goodbye.
The next batter was another bona fide superstar in Juan Soto. Once again, Roberts stuck with Kershaw. And once again, the ball left the park. The game was tied. The bullpen arms that he had at his disposal before those 2 home runs to get 6 outs consisted of Joe Kelly, Kenley Jansen, Pedro Baez, Dustin May, Adam Kolarek, who, by the way, dominated Soto, Julio Urias, Ross Stripling, even Kenta Maeda if he wanted. But he went with Kershaw, and now the game was tied. So the game stayed tied through 9, went into extra innings, and in the 10th, Joe Kelly gave up a grand slam to Howie Kendrick, and there are more bullpen decisions that are criticized there. I'm not going to go through them all, but let's just say that Dave Roberts heavily criticized by a lot of baffling moves. The Dodger bats go down 1-2-3 in the bottom half, and the Nationals move on, while the Dodgers once again went home without a ring. Why did they lose in 19? I would say Kershaw's continued struggles in the postseason, but even more so, questionable bullpen management. I would say very questionable, and I'm confident in saying that some of those moves were very much against the grain, very much trying to overmanage, trying to say, hey, look how smart I am, I'm going to do this crazy thing, and it bit him. It did not work. Also, failure of the offense to come through in key moments. There were lots of men left on base. They came up in the bottom half of the 10th. Yes, they were down by 4, but again, 1-2-3, they showed no fire there. So the offense failing to come through in some key moments there. So, concluding the video, looking at some of those pitfalls that prevented the Dodgers from winning a World Series from 2013 to 2019, it's very hard to predict which of these could come back to be an issue for the Dodgers again in 2020. One of them that I think won't is the offense. I think that this offense is even stronger than it was in any of those years. And now the Dodgers have Mookie Betts. Injuries shouldn't be a major factor. They're dealing with some day-to-day stuff, but nothing major. Worrisome aspects that could come back to bite them this year include their bullpen, which is not bad, but it is fairly unpredictable. So far in September, they have the league's 5th worst ERA. But for the season, the big picture, the bullpen has been good. They have the best ERA in the league at 2.86, only a 7.1% walk rate, 1.07 whip. The bullpen is not bad, and if used correctly, should be a strength for this team. Also, Kershaw is still there. Learn how to use Kershaw. The biggest worry has to be Dave Roberts himself. He is without a doubt a very smart baseball mind, but many of his bullpen and lineup decisions are baffling. And when baffling decisions, when they do work out, a manager's a genius. When they don't, he's a moron. That's just how it is. And unfortunately for Roberts, it's usually been the latter. In my opinion, this Dodgers team is excellent. They have a better chance to win it all than any of those other teams. They've done everything possible with that roster to put a championship team on the field. All Roberts has to do is let him bring it home. Make the obvious choices, don't overmanage, and here are some lessons that hopefully the Dodgers have learned over the past 8 years if they're going to win a World Series. Not that I'm rooting for it, I'm a Giants fan, but I'm just saying if the Dodgers want to do it, they have to look at what went wrong in the past. Kershaw should not come out of the bullpen. In critical moments, don't bring in a reliever just because he's next on the list. Or just because it's the 5th or 6th inning, don't bring in a mid-tier reliever if it's an absolutely critical moment. Bring in the best guy to get out of the jam. Don't bench your superstars because they stand in the wrong batter's box when their replacements aren't any good or if their replacements are struggling. If you got a superstar, even if it's lefty on lefty, you might want to put him in there. We have those same conversations with the Giants this year. Obviously, now that we have Farhan Zaidi over here, maybe that's not going to be as much of an issue over there. But lastly, if a starter is dealing, let him deal. You got it. Obviously, it's not easy. I know that there's a balance there, when to take your starters out, when to put them in, and I'm not trying to say that I could do a better job, but if your starter looks good, you might want to go ahead and leave him in there and let him do what he's doing. Simply put, as the MLB slogan goes, let the kids play, make the obvious moves, don't try to be cute. This is a championship team, and if you let them go win a championship, I think that they will do it this year. I think with some good management, doesn't have to be even great management, good management, this team can take it. So the Dodgers, best of luck in the playoffs. Two are great rivals, and hopefully the Giants will be there as well. And what a matchup it would be if it could be Giants-Dodgers in the first round. Absolutely amazing. So good luck to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Congratulations on clinching another NL West title, but I know you guys want more, and I know it can be done. You just got to avoid some of the pitfalls of the past that we went through today. Have a great day, guys. We'll talk to you next time.